Hey everybody, it's Angela, and I am back with another process video. And this one is going to be one of my retro revisit type of layouts. And I wanted to go back to looking at some of the templates that I have. And I have quite a few of them in my stash from before I had a die cut machine. I would use templates. And although these ones here aren't super old, I think they're from maybe like 2012 or something. I have some that go way, way back, but I just wanted to pull out some templates and use those. And these two happen to be quilting templates to help you make like little quilt blocks out of paper. And so I wanted to do those for a baby layout. And I have this Pebbles baby boy paper that I had gotten at Tuesday morning. So I'm just going through and pulling out some of the colors that I like, and also maybe I want to use some of those cut apart sheets as well. I'm not exactly sure, what I'm doing. I have no sketch or idea really, just the fact that I wanted to pull out and use some templates. And I'm going to use that one in the upper left hand corner of my template, which is more of like a pinwheel shaped quilt block. And I'll show you how I use the template here in a minute. I have a lot of, I use my stencils still, but I just don't use my templates. And, it's kind of a shame because there's so many cool things you can do with this. And I guess, I just got lazy with my die cut machine and being able to do that, not having to trace and cut out shapes. But there's some really cool things you can do with these templates. This one happens to be from Hot Off the Press, and it is still available on their website. And I've turned my paper over and I'm just tracing this quilt block onto the back of my paper so that I can cut it out. And I'm going to do it on several different pattern papers so that I can mix and match. And what it is that big block is like the background, and then you cut out that pinwheel shape, and then that goes on top. And you'll see here when I cut it out how that works. And so it's pretty simple. You just trace on the back of your paper, and then I'm just going to cut this out as one big piece here to begin with. And so there is my background block. And then I had to look back at my template to see which ones were the waste materials. And you can see the colored in ones are the ones that I want to get rid of. And in this case, it's the triangles that have that kind of curved nose to them are the ones that I'm going to throw away. So, and then that leaves all the other 4 pieces connected. So I'm just cutting those ones there with the little curved tip out because those are my waste pieces. And it's as simple as that. And since those two are the same pattern, I want to cut one more out, and then when you mix and match them, that's when it really starts looking like a quilt block. So again, I'm just going to trim those out. And there I have my background block, and then you see when you put another one on top, what a cute little quilt block that makes. And it's nice because you only have to do 2 pieces instead of cutting all those individual pieces out. So I did that for all of my different patterns, and then I went to this cut apart sheet. Oh, and I also sewed them on my sewing machine. So it really makes them look like quilt blocks in that case. And now I'm going to my cut apart sheet, and I'm just cutting out a bunch of things that I may use. I wasn't sure, so I just cut a bunch of them out. And also on those quilt block pieces, I did edge all around them with some gray chalk ink before I sewed them down. And then I took that cloud paper from the paper pad and I put it on that polka dot, that gray and white polka dot. I gutted the interior of the polka dot and I placed that on top to be my mat. And then I've matted the cloud paper on the outside rim of that. So now I'm just kind of seeing, how I want to place these quilt blocks. And I go back and forth, and I was really I guess because I didn't have any kind of sketch or any kind of idea or any kind of scrap lift. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. So I decided to go and pull my photo out. And this is a photo of Mason. And I thought maybe if I had that and had it matted and stuff, that would help me place the quilt blocks down. And again, I'm just edging everything with this gray Prima chalk ink. And so I know I want to have my photo and then I want to have the quilt blocks. And I think what I kind of wasn't liking was I kept trying to put it in an actual grid pattern, and I just didn't like that look. And when I went and started more overlapping them, that helped me figure out what I was going to do. So I have those little pieces and from the cut apart sheet, and I wanted to back them and make them the same size of quilt block. So I'm just using my template again for the big square, and I'm just going to do 3 of those and then back my little cut apart pieces on that. So that way my quilt blocks and my cut apart pieces are all the same size. So I'm just cutting those out. And then I'm also going to edge those with the gray ink. And I'm going to edge my cut apart pieces as well. And then that way I can mat them on there and they'll be the same size as my quilt blocks. And at this point, I don't know how many of them I'm going to use. I just wind up using one of them. Just as my title, I use that. That's our little boy, that darker blue one on the bottom. I kind of use that as my title. And so now it comes to just trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do. And I was really indecisive, and I just, kept playing around with it. And you can see on those quilt blocks, I kind of left the little strands of thread showing because I like that. It really brought another texture into this layout, made it very soft and, babyish without being too feminine. And you can see I'm trying to line them up in a perfect grid spacing. And I think that's what was throwing me off. So I'm like, okay, let me put down my mat because I know I want to have that down there. And then I'll go from there. So I put that down. And I know I want to have some of my blocks kind of hanging off the mat. And then I thought about putting some under and overlapping some over the photo as well. So you can see there I'm still going with that grid thing, and I'm just not really liking the formality of it. It just looked a little too blocky. Here I am, I'm working with blocks, but I don't want it to look too regimented. So again, I'm playing with putting some over the photo, some under the photo. And then I liked the little title that my daughter-in-law had put on the picture. She put that on when she did it on her Instagram. She probably did it on her phone. But although I only had the one photo of him, and it says Faces of Mason, and I only had really the one face picture. So I thought, well, maybe what I could do would be to just cover that up, and that might help me in my design. So I'm still going back and forth, still trying to do it in a block pattern. And so I decide to just start putting some of these down. And I'm kind of moving my patterns, so that no 2 exact blocks are right next to each other. So I go ahead and I commit to another one. And that's when I think I decide to just place my title over the existing title, and to overlap my squares a little bit and not make them so that they have to line up perfectly like a quilt would. So now I'm going to go ahead and place my photo down, and then put my title block over the top. And you could see some of my quilt blocks kind of overlap over the mat onto the background paper. And then the little title block I'm going to put up on foam tape and place that on there. And then I had these pinwheels, and these are, it said Delights. They're American craft pinwheels that have been in my stash for a while. And I like that they brought some of the yellow in from the blanket and the mat that the photo is on. But I didn't like how tall they were, how dimensional they were, because they had like 3 layers of foam tape, I think, on these guys. So I decided to just take off the several of the layers of foam tape to make them a little flatter. You can see I take off the bottom piece, and then I take off one of those interior layers, and I think that still leaves 2 layers of foam tape still in that embellishment. And I like the pops of color that brings in. Although I like the softness of the blue, I really wanted to bring out some of that more citrusy color of the blanket. And the blue and yellow just seem to go really well together, you know, because it's kind of like sun and sky colors. So I thought those two worked really well together. So there, I'm just taking the foam tape off those last couple pinwheels. And then I'm just going to use those as kind of like a triangle of embellishments around my photo. And that really makes the layout pop, and the pinwheels kind of bring out the pinwheels of the in the quilt blocks as well. And again, it's something that's not a flower. It's not a feminine thing for a little boy layout to have the pinwheels on there instead. So I'm liking that. And then because those are so complex and the quilt blocks are pretty complex and all the sewing that's on there, I don't really need too much else. So I just pull some of these Teresa Collins brads to get a few more yellow touches on the layout. So I put that largest brad down there. And then I have that smaller one. And then I'm going to put one at the top, and that will pretty much finish out my layout. Like I said, with how complex all these quilt blocks and pinwheels are, I didn't want to overdo it on my other embellishments. I'll show you the layout here in a second. I did go and do one more thing off camera, which was I went and took the whole layout and sewed around the whole outside edge, and you'll see that in the final photo. So let me bring the layout here closer, and there you can see the brad and the pinwheels, the quilt blocks with all the sewing and the little threads, and it just really makes a really nice soft baby layout with lots of different textures. So I really love how this one turned out, and I love his little face on there. He's just smiling away these days. So anyhow, that is my finished layout. If you have any questions or comments or anything, just let me know. Talk to you later. Bye.